Scrutinize, the 2nd of April, 2025. I hope someone finds this. No one said or did anything to stop them. It's too late. I was alone. It may not be too late for you. Why should I take anything anyone says to be correct when nothing I say to them is taken into consideration? Why should I change anything about me if they do not care to change small things about themselves? Why should I listen to what other people say when they wouldn't as little as hear and understand the things I say to them? This is not being difficult, this is being reasonable. You think you're the most knowledgeable and everyone else is ignorant. That's not true. You think you are right all the time. I don't, and I'm not. You think. Stop telling me what I think. You don't know what I think. This is not life. This is not how you should be thinking. Now, who's the one who thinks they are right all the time? Hinduism began as a monotheistic religion. The Vedas explain how the whole religion was Unitarian, and it believed in a single deity and a single creator of the whole world. However, over time, they continued adding to this single creator personalities and traits and started considering that every trait would be represented in a different person than the creator. No matter how many personalities and traits they added, they would never be able to encompass the whole truth about the Creator. This is derived from the notion that God is unlimited, and as he states in the Bible, I can be whoever I want to be. And as he is described in Islam to have holy names and attributes, they can only refer to him and him alone. Since Hinduism began as a monotheism, the personalities and traits that were given to the Creator should have been used exclusively to refer to the Creator, rather than develop into a pantheism, resulting in polytheistic beliefs in later generations. The 3rd of April, 2025. You act the way you see fits. She acts the way she sees fits, and I act the way I see fit. Why would I be considered abnormal in this equation? You consider that you have a firm grip on how one has to live their life. She has a grip on how to live hers, and I have a grip on mine. Why would I be any different from either of you? You treat people the way you think would be most beneficial to either of you. She treats people the way she considers is the right way to treat them. I treat people the way I consider the right way to treat them. Why would I be any different from either of you? I'm not different than you. You just want me to fit the mold you made for yourself or the mold she made for herself. And when I don't want to fit that mold, you would call me abnormal. It is not to help. You are not telling me the right way to live. You are telling me the way to live like you. You do not care whether it is the right way or not. You only care that it is similar to you or to her. What if the right way to live is nothing like yours? Well, you wouldn't change your way because you think it is the right one, and she wouldn't change her way because that's what she has learned, and that's what she has always been living like. You cannot accept that the right to live is different, and yet you say that I'm the one who thinks they are right all the time. At least I can change, and am willing to change the way I live if I find out that it is wrong. At least I consistently scrutinize my living style rather than take it for granted. At least I know it can have a flaw. Would you say the same about your own living style? Would you say the same about anything that pertains to you? I would say it about anything if I find out that it is wrong, or if I find out that there is a better alternative. No one would do that about themselves. She cares. The 17th of April, 2025. Do you ever contemplate how the world will be after you're dead? How your children will fight among themselves for the sole reason that you favored one over the other? Children are not held to task for the faults of their parents. If a parent favors one child over the others, it would not be the fault of the child if he behaves in a countermeasure. The child is not held accountable for the actions he does in the face of oppressive behavior, especially if it was an oppressive behavior by his parent which is not deserved. The 18th of April, 2025. There are many sentences that can convey different meanings depending on the context in which the sentence is being used. For example, right, you don't care. We don't know whether this sentence was used by a child who tells his mother that she doesn't care when she ignores some kind of need that he had or plainly rejects his request for something. It could be prefaced by, I passed the exam today. Right, you don't care. Or it could be an attempt at pointing the obvious, an attitude that she has which has to change. But after the child tells her that she has to change it, he would say, right, you don't care, pointing out that she either does not care for his comment or that she does not care to change. I'm in limbo. Right, you don't care. I am lost. Right, you don't care. I have no food. Right, you don't care. It wouldn't be possible to take the sentence at face value without examining its context. But that's right, you don't care. It is not entirely being attached to someone, but the fear of losing them, the notion of being left alone, exiled, or sent away to live your life in compulsory solitude. That feeling can be a devastating feeling, especially if you have laid bare all your hope on the single person who had caused you to be in such a state. If you take your parents for granted in the sense that you do not think that they will ever leave or that their death is still a ways away, it means that you have put your life in shackles, made from the hope that this is true, that your parents will always be there for you, that you will not have to worry throughout your life. However, this in itself causes you to go into a state of despair as soon as one of them leaves. You would be thrown into limbo, or hanging all your hope on a person who had left, and you would start thinking to yourself, who am I supposed to have hope in after them? This specific feeling of being in limbo or being lost is a feeling that you would get if you ever place your hope in someone who does not deserve the hope, or if you place your hope in someone who would leave you without giving a reason or without providing an alternative solution or a way back. Therefore, if you find some of those people in your life who would even allow you to be lost or to be thrown into limbo while they are watching, you should immediately take action. Some people who have these qualities and who would leave in a heartbeat are only a warning to you. God uses them to warn you to find an alternative before the inevitable happens. If someone treats you that way once, then goes back on their word, then a second time, then retaliates, then you should take the hint. God is not allowing them to leave entirely before you are ready to take the hit. They will come back until you can get their burden off your back. You should only place your hope in God. He does not leave you at all. And even if that happens, He would still allow you to come back with a clean slate. And He does not remind you of your iniquities against Him. Limbo would not even be a destination if you keep thinking about God and place your hope in Him. Parents only love their children so long as they maintain control over them. Social detachment, lack of empathy, manipulative tendencies. These are identified as criteria to identify a sociopath. Why is it always trinkets when someone wants to hold on to the past? What is the one thing a sociopath lacks? Empathy, attachment. What if you can't tell the time? After all, what if my disdain for humanity's inferior existence was becoming too much for me, and my self-destruction was an act of mercy? What if your provocation backfires and convinces me to turn on both sides, to become the monster they would so like me to be? Why did God create humans complicated? It is to allow the multitude of different paths any person would take. If they were not complicated, they wouldn't be able to come up with new ideas to continue developing. Therefore, complication could be a means to sustain life, to make it possible for it to go on in many unpredictable ways. Complications in the creation of human beings allows the same species to have people of all kinds or types, a murderer, a liar, a cheat, but also a farmer or gardener, a medic, a religious man or an imam. There are many types of human beings which require being exposed to different experiences in lives and different skills. The notion of free will adds to the mix a hint of a twist. Had people not been complicated as a creation, their free will would be tied to one thing or another from the list of possible behavior patterns. Thus, free will would lose its meaning, and the life of the human would become predestined for them, and they would live as though they are following a set schedule, like an animation, a robot, or a staged game scene. Free will, despite it lacking a preset algorithm, uses the complication to determine the next step based on preference from the human, desire, intention, or motivation. Usually, when a human is given a choice between two things, there are many factors used to determine the choice they would make. If it is a duty or a task given to them by a higher power, then free will would be limited to the time of performance rather than whether or not to do the task. Complication in human beings causes some to disobey commands given to them, or to blatantly deny the superiority of the higher power, causing them to either be terminated or laid off from handling future tasks. When presented with two options, a human would weigh the two options on an artificial scale, which determines which of the two options is more plausible. Although, at the end of the day, free will would act based upon desire for one option over the other. It comes down to preference in the end. However, preference is also influenced by the choice made. If the free-willing human likes the first option after selecting it, then he would be more inclined to select it if presented as an option a second time. Therefore, preference does not entirely work as a decision-making indicator if presented both the options for the first time. If two options were presented with two distinct actions in each, then a free-willing human would select the option more suitable through evaluating their desire and needs. If a person is put in a holding cell with no food or water for a whole day, when presented with the two options at the end of the day, where they would only be able to select one of them, he would weigh the options in accordance with their needs, whether they are more thirsty or more hungry. Free will cannot work efficiently if the entity making the decision had been cornered into an impossible situation, whether to die of hunger or to die of thirst. A decision cannot be made in such circumstances, and even if it were made, it would not be considered free will. Free will can only be acknowledged, and a free decision can only be made through consciousness.